I want to talk about what's helpful to say to family members who are experiencing a relationship where their partner is a porn or sex addict, or their partner is struggling with compulsive behaviors, or their partner has been a repeat offender over and over, having affairs and sleeping with other people outside of the relationship. So sometimes we just think the most helpful things to say are things like, you need to get out. You need to leave the relationship. This is what you need to do, and this is why. You're being harmed in this relationship. You're not valuing yourself. You're not honoring yourself. Sometimes the first response is, there's something seriously wrong with your partner. He's a liar. He's a cheat. He's possibly some kind of sicko because he's addicted to these sexual things or looking at things on the internet. Advice is often given to women to not only leave, but given to them in a way that is very negative and very judgmental. In other words, it's implying that if you stay, then there's something inherently wrong, not only with him in the relationship, but with you. Now, this may or may not be true. There may be something seriously wrong in the relationship that can never be repaired. There may be something that the woman is struggling with. But my goal for the general public is to just educate you about what isn't helpful and let you know what might be helpful for a woman who's going through this. So when I look back to the days when my husband was struggling with pornography, I think about several things. I think about, one, it would have been nice to know that I could have come to my faith community, for example, and talk to them about this issue without fear of judgment. That would have been nice. Now, since I've shared these things, I've received a very positive response. But you have to understand that I've shared these things post-healing. I've shared these things post-recovery. And so things turn out positively for my husband. So I think, and they turn out positively for me as well and for the relationship. So I think people respond to that. They're glad to hear a success story, right? But what if I had come to them when I was in the heat of this moment, when I was in the midst of this struggle, and said, my husband's struggling with pornography? One attempt I did make in reaching out to a faith-based community was when I called a organization that I will not name, and it was like a hotline for families to call in for help. And there were trained counselors there. And one of the trained counselors basically admonished me that I needed to get out of the relationship, that I needed to end what was going on, because by not doing that, I was allowing sin in my home, and I was condoning or approving of sinful behavior. So I just want to throw that out for you as people of faith. If you have somebody in your faith-based community come to you and talk to you about what's going on in their relationship, that is not a helpful response. It's not only not helpful, it's making a lot of assumptions about not only the partner's behavior, which is fine. It's fine to have a stance against adultery or taking your sexual needs outside of the relationship. There's nothing wrong with having that moral stance. The problem comes is when you start to look at the person who's seeking help and support as the problem, and you start to judge them and criticize them and pressure them to do something. So first and foremost, don't pressure. Just listen. Listen and offer support. That's the best thing you can do for a woman or a man who's coming to you in this situation. Secondly, be there outside of listening. Be a real friend. Be a friend who offers support when you're able to. Be a friend who's there when they need help moving. Be a friend who's there when they need a shoulder to cry on. Be a friend who not only is supportive to them, but also expects them to be supportive in return, within reason, understanding that this person is going through a crisis. But one of the things you need to understand is that often this person has experienced a lot of broken relationships and hasn't had a healthy friendship. So you could be a person who models that for them. People learn so much better by just living and experiencing than they do just following our advice. So listen, be a friend, don't give advice, just let them know that you're there and that you're available. And I think that will go a long way in helping your friends sort out their relationship problems. Keep that in mind. We need to go through a process in the problems of life. Sometimes leaving is pretty similar to just escaping and doing the easy thing and taking the easy way out. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's the smartest thing ever. But that's not our decision to make as outsiders outside of the relationship. Unless it's like blatantly abusive or the person's life is in danger, I encourage you not to make those kind of assumptions. Consider the fact that sometimes leaving is the easiest thing to do. And that sometimes leaving doesn't solve the problem for the future. In our group coaching call with the women tonight, we discussed how often these types of relationships are lifelong patterns. And how are we going to get out of the patterns if we keep running from them? If we keep running from the relationships, we need to stop sometimes and just examine what's going on and learn from it. And sometimes the best way to do that is do that within the context of the relationship we're in, instead of looking for greener grass or the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. So be there, listen, encourage and support that person, minimize advice, minimize judgments, and you will be a great friend to someone in need during this time.